come to order. President or members Linda Anderson, Steve Riley, Kurt Kurchowski, and myself, Kirsten Solomon. And we have the presence of a quorum, obviously. Do we have anyone here that has completed a request to speak card? I'm guessing no. Okay. With that, we'll move on to items for individual consideration. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes from the April 4th meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as stated.
Second? Have a
Second.
Okay, minutes have been approved. Steve Riley and second, Linda Anderson. All
Yay.
in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I've got my little cheat sheet. Okay, staff updates.
We got
we
B,
had a case.
3B,
What?
3B.
Oh, I did that, didn't I? Okay, 3B, receive a report, hold a discussion, and take action on the Katy Depot mural at 101 East Main Street. I got ahead of myself. I was wanting to end this meeting before I got here.
We can go at least, we can go till 5 after.
There's 10 minutes.
So this mural is it's taken a good while for us to get the process done. The design committee had addressed it when they initially painted the mural, and then we were like, okay, you've got to have that approved. And so we went through the steps, and it just has not been completed until recently. So the design committee did approve this. It is between the Peanut Building and the Katy Depot. So it's really only visible to the people in the Katy Depot, or there's a tiny walkway in front of it.
Yeah, that
That's
other
not really
picture's-
for public. So, I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, if you go to the other picture that shows just the concrete wall there. I don't have it. Oh, of course. Anyway, it's very obvious. And the other picture through the window is even better.
Yeah,
Which really says what it needs to do. And it is kind of a generous amenity, I think, for people to look at that concrete wall.
It's nice. Any discussion at all, or? Do I have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the design of this mural at 101 East Main Street at the Katy Depot.
Second.
Okay, got a motion to approve by Kurt Kurchowski, and second by Linda Anderson. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
okay,
Now
do
staff
we,
updates.
yeah, do we have that? Okay, are y'all able to see that on your screen?
If you turn that on, it'll pop up.
Okay.
I was just going to read over on yours.
Sure.
Not to copy your answers.
Okay, so you can see on the, I'm sorry, what? Okay, on the left side that there's a bar there, and that's where any changes have been made. Your representative, Mr. Chakowski, looked through this and was very diligent in making comments, and he was out of town when we had our meeting. So we reviewed everything and haven't got back to him yet. The timing of this was a little bit short to present it today because Madison's made the edits, but there's some people with information that we need to get back to us, and so to finalize it. So we'll go ahead and present it to council once that's done, but I wanted you to have seen it before. I don't have anything to give you because it's kind of mid-edit, and I want you to get it when it's been edited. Some things that were discussed at the meeting that are probably not on here is it was felt they should display their certificate of appropriateness. You know how you used to have to submit the building permits? Well, due to that being electronic, it said that that requirement has not been enforced or not been performed lately. We felt like that you should display your certificate of appropriateness so that we know that you have one. So that's one thing that will be in here. We also want to add when the meetings occur and can they attend virtually? That's a question that we didn't know. I don't remember that Chris answered that in her answer, but anyway, I'll find that out. You know, you've had several cases like the Whataburger case where they flew in and then we didn't have a quorum. So, you know, if it's...
I guess it would also follow, can we attend virtually?
Right. Right, and so I'm going to clarify that. We want to clarify what a historic preservation officer is, and then also what is ordinary maintenance. So they wouldn't necessarily have to come to you if it's ordinary maintenance, but I don't want that to be a scapegoat where they I'm just doing ordinary maintenance. I don't want that even to be a thought, so I want it to be so specific that that they have to do that. And again, in cases like where they make emergency repairs, I want that to be, they get permission at least through me, even if they have to come back later, if it's so emergency that it can't wait. Okay, so on 30-2, there's, it talks about the historic preservation officer must have certain backgrounds. In the absence of a qualified official or staff person, the municipality may hire a consultant. We wanted to add that in there. And then it says a volunteer may be appointed. That is, I don't think, they wanted to take that out. So they said that they can hire a consultant. It was felt that that's too important of a job to have a volunteer doing. So I guess in that case, if the volunteer was so qualified, they could become the consultant for pay.
So then we'd strike a volunteer should be aware of the liability?
Yes. Well, no, the volunteers, we didn't, although that may need refining because, yeah.
The HBO.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not going to be a volunteer, but the volunteer should be aware. I think we were thinking the board in that case would be.
In the absence of a qualified official or staff person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that penultimate sentence needs to be rewritten there.
Okay. And then the HRO shall be empowered to, you had a question.
On D.
Yeah. With compensation. So does that take care of that?
It does up above, no, but on D it was, who does the administrative review? So
Review and action.
yeah, if the
Or
HBO reviews and
subject-
takes action, subject to administrative review, who does that?
Is
Your
that in
boss?
lieu of, or does that precede? So,
That's not a big deal.
I'll have to review it to see, but I review them when
Mhm.
they come in to make sure and try to catch all the things that they
Mhm.
haven't included or the things that may cause you pause, and then try to get a consultant at that point our consultant to weigh in
Mhm.
on that. So, okay, and then on H, I think the question was, how do I do that review?
Yeah, is it just to make sure that the certificate of appropriateness is within the Main Street guidelines as well as the HPB and associated other guidance? In other
Yes.
words, you're going to
Yes.
coordinate with it, coordinate in, what are you coordinating?
So maybe state that.
Yeah.
And the consultant would do the same.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Designation of what's in the historic district goes through the Planning and Zoning Commission, and so it goes to the council, but we're going to state that it goes through the Planning and Zoning Commission for that designation. And let's see. At the bottom of that page under, well, it's the last two paragraphs of that page. It says, upon designation of an area as a historic landmark or historic district by the city council, the designation should be recorded in the tax records, and all zoning maps should indicate the designated landmarks and districts by an appropriate mark. So we're there on the previous. I think we could better have a better listing on our map so people can't miss it. We're working with the mapping department on that.
And only from my other job, I think we could also get with the Texas Historic Commission because they have a map that shows the Denison Historic District. And right now, it's not aligned. But it's very easy to give it to the Texas Historic Commission.
Okay, so theirs would be that we have the actual National Register District, and ours is a broader.
Exactly. But they're amenable
Right.
to, they don't confine themselves just to the National Register.
Right. Okay.
Just if there's someone smart enough to cross-reference.
Right. Okay, and then on the third page, I've just got a note that we need to define local historic district, and so we will take care of that. You, actually, on C, may recommend a district or landmark to the city council by way of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And,
Goes in nice.
okay, and then your question after the properties that are already designated as high or contributing, you ask, that's where you mentioned the Texas Historic
Yes.
Commission map,
Mhm.
okay. Okay, so I think that's, yeah, our overlay is not the same as their district, but do you think they will show both?
I think,
could
from what
be.
I've done in the past, is they will do ours.
To essentially supersede theirs?
Theirs, they only take from some other's reference.
Okay.
And
so
if it's not the National Registry, which I believe is what they have it as, they can either show two, or they will ask us which one we would want to display.
Okay, I think
Because
we
it
need
doesn't-
both, because we definitely don't have the National Register District the same, but
But
it's,
when they display it, they don't, it's only because I asked them on the phone, because of the other job I have, that they say, well, let me check. Oh, yeah, that's the National Register, but it doesn't have to be. I said, okay. So we can change this if the city changes it. And they
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, I think we would want both. Okay, under the certificate of appropriateness at 30-4, we talked about, is it for 1 year? We want to put time limits on the certificate of appropriateness, so it's not just never ending. There's a limit, and it's a one-time extension. I don't.
Will it be matched with any permitting?
The timing will.
Yes.
Okay. And then let's go to number 5. You can see there that there's a lot of stuff we took out. I want to talk about that. I think that's where we are. Yeah, right there. Okay. Okay, first to answer your question at number 5. Yeah, so you just asked that. Okay.
Yes.
From B, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, we are not removing those responsibilities. We are putting them in the design guidelines.
Very good.
And so that was the consensus at the meeting that we would, that the most appropriate place was design guidelines. When this was written, they didn't have
Didn't have
design guidelines, and so we didn't make that distinguishment. And so we're going to just say in B, any COA must conform to the design guidelines, and there's a
Here.
formal note there.
Perfect.
Okay. And okay, and then C, under 6C, I guess, constitutes C2, constitutes a distinct historical significance of the city. They just reworded that. And then, Kurt, your question there, that's the same. I think I'm rehashing.
I think so.
I think I went backwards. Okay.
Obviously, some of the letters have changed, so I'm just trying to match them is all.
Right. After you took that section out, you would have made those go away, the sections they were in, so some of the numbers could have changed.
Yeah, it automatically reformatted
Okay.
for you, yeah. So I'm
Okay.
just doing it by the titles now.
Right. We tried to leave all the edits in there, because if we would have taken those sections out and given it to you, you might think, oh, that sounds good, but you don't know that what we took out. So I want you to be aware of it and it to register. Okay, now I'm back on track. So we feel that they must give you a sample. Before we said it must be painted on like material. The group felt like they can bring a chip. When you print, it sometimes gets a different color and appears like that. But they could bring a paint sample from the store, just a chip that you pick up and bring. They don't have to actually bring you a painted sample. I was personally in favor of that because I thought it was maybe asking a little bit much in some cases. If there's any question that you have, you can always ask for that, or you could request that we stick with that.
So if I'm a person interested in, what is a tangible sample now?
Yeah,
I'm
Yeah.
not sure that's tangible's the best word.
and I don't,
But I don't know what other word.
Physical.
See, if, I was under the impression, and I was gonna ask about that, is to bring a brick with the paint on it, but I could see where that might cause issues. So when I saw the word tangible sample, at first I go, oh, that's a good word, but maybe not from what I just heard you say. So if I'm a builder, and I'm coming in here and I wanna do this, and it says, okay, I'm gonna have to do a tangible sample. It's not a chip, a paint chip. and
It
It's not a
can't-
print color. So what is it I have to show now?
A paint chip.
Just a chip?
So the
Okay.
strip you get in the hardware store,
Okay.
don't show us anything on a screen, correct?
right, and
I
I
mean, you
think
can
we,
have it on
Or
the
from a
screen, but
printer.
we need to see
Yeah.
Actual paint chip.
Her term though,
physical.
actual physical.
I just don't think tangible's the right word.
okay.
A physical sample representative or a physical representative of a sample, or?
I know we also talked, we were worried about like someone, like say a lemon or something, just bringing a lemon, be like, oh, it's gonna be yellow like this. or
No.
something, Right.
That's why I like the word physical.
Right, and a paint chip is physical. I mean, it would be lovely if it was gonna be on a brick, that they, put it on a brick. But then we went through the deal, oh, I'm gonna have to go buy a quart of paint. Okay, bring us a chip, but don't expect us to approve a color that we only see electronically.
A physical representation.
Right.
Yeah, okay, can you remember that?
Cannot be artificially,
Created.
intelligently generated, yes, it's gotta be a physical sample.
So, yeah, so we will still have it in your packet,
Right,
and you will get the essence of it, but
When
they
they
will,
talk.
they will bring a physical sample.
and if the applicant is not here, then I would say if we don't have an actual physical thing, then we don't consider it unless they've gotten it to you.
Right, and I think there's some wording on, strongly suggesting that they appear before you, or otherwise they're taking their chances.
If we don't have a physical
Yeah.
sample, then there's no chance to take. It's gonna be tabled until we have one, whether they're here or not, I think. I mean, it doesn't meet the end if we're still faced with a situation where we don't have it just because they're not here. You need to have it if they're not here.
Right. And I feel like they should be here.
Correct.
I agree with that, only because it shows their interest, but I could also understand if they can't be here, would a Teams meeting or would a Skype or whatever. But my question now is we're still gonna have a design guide with recommended paint colors. So if they say, I'm using this color, mossy green, number blah, 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 does that mean I have to still bring a chip?
I think so, because once again,
Okay.
when what we see of mossy green is what comes on a screen, then even from here to here, it could be different.
Okay.
So I'm not completely happy with nothing but the paint chip from the store, but that's much better than just seeing some electronic rendering on a screen. Maybe we could say parenthetically or whatever, if possible, a paint sample on the building materials would be ideal, if possible. Because we have had a couple or three applicants who did bring us something painted on a piece of wood or whatever, and it's just way better. You can move it along, you can look at it, but no more action can be taken when all we have is something on the screen, I think.
Well, the one thing too is they're gonna put this on an agenda. You're working with your office, you're gonna tell them, hey, this is on the agenda for 2 weeks from today. You're gonna probably need to be there for the board to, and they say, well, I'm tied up. Well, let's table this till you can be there.
So most of the time, we don't get it 2 weeks, we may get it,
Within
The
the
day
posting
before.
time. Right.
yeah, and so we've tried to do a cutoff of a week before, but,
Whatever works for you.
yeah,
We'll work your agenda, but they gotta work.
right.
Yeah, but I like your words, highly recommended, that was earlier in this ordinance, and
You mean
maybe
on the
in,
actual wood material.
yes, right, and in their interaction, you say it is much greater chance of success if you are in attendance.
right. Okay.
So 36B4.
So then it becomes just a matter of our understood procedure rather than policy, that we say we won't consider it, it'll be tabled until we actually have it.
Well, I think
You
right
think
there,
that says it there?
instead of tangible samples, say a physical representation of materials will be used.
Must be presented at
Yes.
the meeting, and if it's not presented, then the
Is-
item is tabled? I mean, because that,
It doesn't meet the ordinance, so it can't.
so it can't be considered,
Yeah,
right? And so then it won't be on the agenda?
that's what I'm saying.
Well,
What does our HPO say? Because you're going to be the one that's going to have to pass it to the link to the interested party.
I would hesitate to be so specific. On one hand, I would need to see it in writing and think of it, but you get all kinds and in all shapes, and I'm talking about the material they present to you. And sometimes that's enough, and sometimes it's not enough. And so I think you need to have enough to make a decision, and I don't know how to quantify that on paper.
So maybe be like a dimension 6 by 6.
Well, the chips are not. The
chip,
chips
I
are,
don't think so. Paint chip size. Well, I think we can pass that on to the working group and let the working group work on the wording for that.
well, and that's the point. The working group right now is Madison and myself and maybe the consultant to get it refined what the decisions were, to bring it back, to present everybody a copy of the decisions. And then the question I have is, do we need to have another meeting? Or can everybody look at it individually and make comments back? So I don't know. I think maybe that we're gonna have to wait to let everybody read it to see if they have questions.
well, the shall include basically preempts it going any further than you without something physical to look at. The shall works for that. So in theory, it wouldn't even get to us unless you
Right.
had seen a physical color. So we don't have to talk about whether we're gonna consider it, table it, or anything, because we're not gonna see it, correct?
Theoretically.
Yes, for that specifically. For your comment in general, I agree. I think that once we go through here and you're enlightening us and the things that came out of there, when the working group gets the feedback of the changes and provides input back to you so that you are comfortable and decide whether there needs to be another physical meeting of the working group, or if you have found the consensus between everything, that you could then come to the different entities involved prior to the city council that's going to approve the
Right.
ordinance.
I want it to
I
be
like that.
solid
Yeah.
and,
Everybody knows
Yeah.
what the page is.
yeah,
Yeah.
and bulletproof, if you will, when it goes to council, because I don't want citizen A or board member B or whatever.
Standing up in a public meeting saying, this is malarkey.
Yeah, or even finding flaws in it after it's approved. So I want it to be solid.
All the relevant parties have seen it,
Yes.
worked with it, and approved it.
Yes.
So I appreciate this update. I think your path forward is very smart. Thank you for going through there, and I think gathering people's input there, once you've got the final draft, I think is the best way.
Yeah,
forward.
and then we will send it out to all of you, and please, read it if you see anything that you think is, that could be tightened or whatever, you should respond. And I've told staff that too. I hope they will take it as seriously as
I
you
hope so,
do.
because the only way this thing is really gonna work is the interaction of this ordinance with everybody else's ordinance.
Right,
So whether it be the permitting department or whether it be the enforcement department, there is overlap that we're going to have to ensure goes on. And if
Right.
I'm a person trying to adhere to all this, I want to be sure that it's internally consistent. So I don't go, well, this ordinance says this and this chapter says this, which one is it really?
right. And that's, we had good input at the meeting. Robert, there was one question that I had. Can you go back to a previous owner? We've had some demolition by neglect. Can you find a previous owner? You can't. It's got to be the current owner. That was a question that they asked.
You cannot write summons to a previous owner for selling something in a certain condition. That new owner takes that.
With the sale.
Question I have, and I don't know if it's been explored yet or not, is to preemptively get ahead of some of the problems. Have we explored the possibility of filing something in the property records for every address that's in historic districts? So when someone buys a building, see that in a title search.
That's what we had hoped for, Robert, and if there were any way we could execute that, we've sort of
Yeah, I don't know if
played
anybody's
with that all
explored it or
along.
not. I mean,
Well, it was written in the original ordinance. It never got executed. And so I'm told that Chris has done that. Now, I don't know if it's one piece of paper that went to the county and they were supposed to, make it for all the addresses or what. We would need to,
Wow.
so,
Yeah, I mean, when we,
Oh, right,
Yeah,
for
because if
each-
I'm gonna go in there, I'm only gonna go to that address. I'm not
Right,
gonna go to
so
that.
each property would have to be in there separately, essentially.
I mean, it may have the same language in it, outside of changing addresses.
That would be the same.
I mean, but you'd have to, like, each address would be an individual filing.
so we can't just say all the addresses within this boundary.
We could, but then each individual person coming to an individual,
Yeah, but it's gotta get
Place,
put in
yeah.
there into that
Right.
specific address,
Well,
or when you pull
In
that
my
property
mind,
in.
that's what happened, but I don't know if in actuality that happened. That needs to
then
happen.
does it need to be marked as
And I
contributing or
didn't-
So
non-contributing?
it is.
I was just told that Chris did it,
Yeah.
I don't know,
Absolutely.
Wow.
last month.
And,
Oh, okay.
when we worked with
I didn't know that it had been done that recently.
Can you spot
they
check?
don't want it,
I'll ask
course
her.
not.
they don't want to
Okay.
disclose
I
anything.
mean, I'll ask her
And so
how
what we
that,
said is,
how
okay,
that
we
got
need to
filed.
figure out, and I've met with Richard.
Because I don't know the
too.
details, I just
You
know
it's
that
not
she
fair
has
to
done it
purchaser,
now,
like,
but it's,
Not too much.
yeah.
Not to know, yeah.
And so what we, what we messed with is, okay, how
Or
bureaucratically
showing
can
this
that
is
be
a
there?
historic district like
So that
Holly
people
County,
can do,
that we're
Yep, yep,
historic
yep,
district
yep.
of McKinney.
and known before
Is that
someone
designated
purchases a
on
building.
CAD somehow?
And I think what Robert's talking about is we get.
I don't
there,
know.
you call up a
We
property
mean-
address and there it is.
Yeah,
It
we
can,
should,
someone's
we
gonna
should
have
be
to do
able
the
to
grunt
find
work
that
do
out.
It may be you have to go back and file an application for each address.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like a large task, but it really
It's finite, though. It is finite.
You know where the
You
beginning.
only
and
do
end
it
is.
Right.
You just do
Well,
it.
Right.
And you know
Unless you
they
add
are.
it. Right.
And I would think that we have the capacity to identify each address just by pressing a button that's within that district, so we could, just duplicate it as needed.
And it may not be something that the county does this year, but your taxes will be due next year, and that would be a part of that application for that address.
Everybody just got their assessment.
So,
Well, if there's some excruciating labor intensity, copy paste that needs to go on for an afternoon, but it's the same, like Robert said, it's gonna be the same language, I'll come up here and do that. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't think necessarily, you know, it's like big brain
We
work.
already killed the volunteers, you can't do that.
But, you know, if it's a cut and paste deal and staff just doesn't have the time to do it, I would volunteer.
Well, we'll find out
Okay.
the specifics. And on another note, Brian, Kurt asked the question on 30-6, number B2, do we have any resource to help the owners with their historical reference material? And of course, we have Brian's book, and we supply that. He said that there is photos and maybe more photos that he's got to digitize. But he's basically doing more fun stuff, other stuff that he likes to do, and that's not on the top of his list. He's always wanted to do it. I said an intern could do that.
Yeah.
Totally.
You know, Brian can write books. An intern can't write books. He could have some help
The
to do
Austin
that.
College History Department has interns that they're looking for jobs.
Yeah. So that would be a good job. Let's see. It's
You don't need to go
page-
through each one of mine. I'll be glad to
Okay.
go through it.
The
only one that I was really concerned about, really concerned about is if the city council overrides the Historic Preservation Board, which is their purview, I have no problems with that. I would just like the feedback of why, so that we can put that in our calculus for the next time.
Okay.
But you can't, because you don't know why council did it, and if you try to say, oh, well, last time council, we need to only go by our set of rules.
I agree.
If council decides that, well, I really didn't like this shirt Kirk was wearing last week, no,
It was a tie last time, but that's okay.
could have been, but I was gonna talk to you about it, but, I guess you want that feedback, but we can't make our decision based on.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that means we need to change the ordinance, or that means it's, because we're acting in the good faith,
Yeah.
and somehow that,
Yeah, we can, like what we talked about a while ago, yeah.
yes. So I don't know if that got included at all. And maybe there needs to be an unofficial feedback loop then.
Right. Minutes.
You know, maybe the city manager talks to the assistant city manager, who talks to you, and then you as a staff update, provide the feedback.
Yeah, and I usually attend those meetings. It's, when that's happened before, they don't always go by the same guidelines that you go by.
Well, that's when I would go to these city council meeting, is that is the agenda item, and say, why not?
Right. Okay, and then on a certificate of appropriateness for demolition, there was specific wording that we wanted to add in there, but the economic hardship on 30-9, apparently there's some, go ahead.
Yeah, she did that because I said she didn't need to do it just for me, unless you had a question on it.
Planning and zoning has apparently a process for economic hardship, and we thought we could keep that. I think that if we just went by this ordinance, it's like, I don't have the money for that. Well, the time's passed that somebody that doesn't have the money to own a building downtown, you know, I think that everybody would say, I can't afford that. And that's not a good excuse. That needs to be documented if they have an economic hardship. So the Planning and Zoning Department has a process, and I just thought we could duplicate that here. That was for documentation. And then on enforcement on 30-10, the, apparently in permitting, they're getting a new process, system. And so they will easily be able to tie the certificate of appropriateness to the certificate of occupancy and check off the work that was been done. And it may require some involvement from us as far as checking that off, but they won't be able to issue that certificate of occupancy until that has been done.
I see they've added you for the enforcement.
I think that's a piece of the puzzle. It's not just me. I think it's,
Code Compliance, Neighborhood Services Department, or the HPO.
yeah,
As long as they
Any
don't
of the
just default to
three.
you.
Right.
yeah. And then down on 30-8, I guess, there's an economic, I'm sorry, I was reading the wrong place. Emergency demolition. So we added in Denton's procedures for this emergency demolition. Like if you have a fire like we did, how long you can leave the things and things like that. And that's all the comments that we had. Do you have any questions?
You just go to 3015. Just wanted to see currently how you've handled that. Shall be final. Okay. Thanks. So I think, Donna, great work. From here, we'll look to see what the task force, get a copy of the final draft to make comments on.
Right.
And I'll make sure that I include you all.
And thank you for all the work you've done. That's
I
great.
don't have your email address, though. If you
Okay.
give that to me, if you will write it down here, I will make sure that you get
You
that.
have mine because I
I
responded.
do have
Okay.
yours, I have Steve's, but I don't
me write it
have
on the
numbers.
back?
Yes, please.
Good work, Donna, thank you.
Thank you for your patience.
Well, not yet.
I was waiting to see if she had any more updates.
No, I just plan to send it out to everybody and get a feel. If there's a lot more updates, then I think another meeting would be prudent. If not, if we've already discussed all of them, then I think it should proceed to council. So,
Great, yeah, what they do very correctly and very nicely is they put us all as a blind copy. So I was doing some stuff with Linda and with Steve separately, I just didn't have yours, because I can't hit reply all on a blind copy.
Right.
Oh, that's right.
Did you have another question?
Is that
So,
it?
I don't know if there's anything else,
Anything else? That's it. Meeting
or
is
do you have to have a
adjourned.
motion?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Second.
Second.
Aye.
Aye.